Unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time.
Merkley, you know, when you say that, it makes you look dumb. It makes you look like a racist. It makes you look like a fool. It makes you look like a homophobe. You look like a bad person. You look like you're dumb. It makes you look dumb. I got in this Twitter back and forth exchange with a young fella named Logic Bender. I mean, I should have known by his name, by his Twitter handle. But I made a comment, somebody made a comment that, 30-06, you couldn't use a 30-06, that would blow the head off of a moose. You've heard this, that's the thing that's going around. There's no way it was a 30-06, it would have obliterated them into a billion pieces. You hear this from people, like I've fired 30-06s, 30-30s, I already told this story. My first deer I ever shot was with a 30-30. It wasn't a 30-06. I thought about it. I thought it might have been a 30-06, but I think it's my 30-30 that I used. Lever action, iron sights. My stepdad had a 30-06, and I used that quite a bit too. And I think the second deer I ever killed, I killed with that. But anyway, the point is I just chimed in, and I said, MLK was shot with the 30-06, and there was no exit wound. And this guy chimed in, technically there was. There was an exit wound and a re-entry room. And I know this because what happened is he was shot through the cheek, went maybe nicked the jawbone, but it came back out of underneath, that soft, gooey part of your feel that underneath your chin, that soft part, hole came out of there, went into his neck, then into his spine, blah, blah, blah. Some people say the bullet didn't come out. Some people say there were pieces of it. And anyway. But the point of me saying the MLK thing wasn't necessarily, I did say MLK, no exit wound, because allegedly they found the bullet in his body. But this guy, technically it did come out of his body and then went back into his body. I go, okay, fine. It's like saying if you put your hand on your chest and somebody shoots you and it goes through your hand, that there's an exit wound coming out of your hand and going into your chest, right? Like, hello, bullet comes out, peekaboo, I'm out, now I'm going back in, And that was the point I was making. But it wasn't the reason for me bringing up MLK. The reason for bringing up MLK is it just, as if God dropped the comparison in my lap, the other main political assassination of a religious leader happened to be MLK, happened to also be shot with a 30-06, and also happened to be not damaged to the point where he could have an open casket. Let's just put it that way. In other words, didn't blow his head off, didn't turn him into smithereens. The bullet went into his body, had a little peekaboo, hi, when it came out, went back in and stayed in there, and he died and he had an open casket. But I went back and forth trying to make this argument and clarify this argument with the kid, but the kid was still wanting to do, actually, but it is an exit wound. And, back and forth, it's just like, dude, you're missing the point. The point is a 30-06 doesn't blow a person to smithereens. And it's more plausible than not, considering the rest of the evidence, that, yeah, Tyler probably used Grandpa's 30-06. And it worked. Not a surprise to me. Wasn't a surprise to me from the very first day. None of that was, what? I wasn't confused or scratching my head because of my experience with deer rifles. In fact, that's literally what I suspected. When I first saw it, the very first second, I thought, holy shit, deer rifle. That's what I thought, because that was my experience. It reminded me of the first deer I ever shot. That's what it reminded me of. First memory, you know? But anyway, I don't want to get off track because the point to this thing is this exchange went on, and he started bringing in Chat GPT, and he's saying stuff like, any educated person would know that it's not a direct comparison. He was trying to get rid of my evidence on the technicality that there was this peekaboo gap where the bullet came out of his chin, then went back in his body, came out, made a little, hi, I just did an exit wound, I'm getting back, you know. I was just like, okay, fine. There's a peekaboo. It's not a direct comparison. You know, like, why? But why? What's the point? The point of that is that his head didn't get blown off, that he died, and they found the bullet inside of his body. You know, if you want to measure the amount of bone and the amount of skin and the amount of air it goes through, that's fine. You can do that too. The density, the ricochet pattern. But it's like God handed that comparison on a silver platter. Here's one. The other guy, that one other guy that was a religious leader who was assassinated, happened to be assassinated with a 30-06, shot in the face, and yet had an open casket. I'm still not getting to the point. The point is, this guy kept, in the argument, he kept saying, this makes you look ridiculous. This looks like that. You lose credibility. Any educated person knows. And then he screenshotted him asking a chat bot. And I went and asked a chat bot, and it said a different thing. And I brought in with my evidence from the chat bot. I said, the chat bot will say whatever it wants to. That was the reason why I was bringing in the evidence of the chatbot, to say, look, if you're going to appeal to authority, a chatbot ain't it. That's not it. The chatbot will say, I said, it's a confirmation bias engine. It's there to engage you, you know? But, of course, he was just like, well, because you used the chatbot the wrong way. Okay, if you use it the right way, then it's omniscient. I get it. Fine. You look stupid. You look stupid. I go, I know I look stupid. I see myself in the mirror every fucking day. You don't find many people that look dumber than I do. But that's not the point. The point when you're having a debate about something is what is real and what is fiction. What aligns with reality and what doesn't. That's how you go about a debate. Not to win it, not to look cool, not to look great, but if you want to win a debate, and there's no victory there, because reality, it wins always. So you're not going to beat reality. There's no victory. There's no such thing in really winning a debate, in my opinion. You either accurately describe reality or you don't. And if you don't, you lose. Not the debate, but everything. You're lost. You're in a fantasy land. What you're describing is not reality. You're describing a fantasy, you know? So that's the key. That's the key. Not looking cool, not looking good, not looking like you're a non-racist, not looking like you're a holier than thou, not looking like anything. It's, are you describing reality accurately? Does your description match reality? You know, that's what's important. And it's weird because it's only been since like 2020 when I really started seizing upon the word reality. You know, using your senses, using the technology that God gave you to navigate reality. All your senses, your 7+ senses, your sniffer, your peepers, you know, your liquor, your earballs, your sense of direction, your sense of balance, your sense of humor, even all your senses. I say 7+ senses because I'm sure there are more. I mean, what's the sense that you feel when you know you need to poop? That's a sense, right? That pressing sensation in your butthole that says, I gotta poo. That sensation you got to pee, that's a sense. That one's not named in the main 5, but I'm naming it here now. That sense helps you navigate reality. And it's all about reality, you know? When somebody says something that's reality on TV or on the screen, all you have to do is check it with your senses and go, is that real or is that fantasy? And you have all this equipment to deal with, you know? Fingers, toes, memory, eyeballs, you know? Even imagination, you know? You have all this equipment to navigate reality. Go, does that match with reality? They're saying that there's a plague and that the air is poison, yet the air doesn't smell like death. And I've smelled death a lot of times. I've smelt it in my fridge before when I left something too long, you know? I've smelled it in the walls when a mouse died. I know what death smells like. I'm not smelling it. I'm not hearing the moans of a plague. I'm not hearing the sounds of heads hitting the pavement. You know, I'm seeing certain things on the screen and certain descriptions, but I have feet, my sense of balance. It can walk me over to the hospital. I can use my peepers to look in the hospital. Is it overflowing with people moaning and passing out in their own vomit? Are heads exploding? No. But yet in 2020, nobody used their senses. They just looked at the screen and they started making screeching arguments and they put diapers on their faces and they did all these other things to look smart. They started referencing doctors and credible and professionals and experts, educated people, so that they would look right. That's what that mask was. It was appearance. It didn't do anything for them, probably damaged their health, but it made them look like obedient suckers to the rest of us. You know, so when this kid, and I looked through his feed, I clicked over to his Rumble channel, and I thought, okay, the kid's probably a nice enough kid, but he's too wrapped up in his own insecurities about how he looks to the world. And I still see that with my friends, you know. I made this whole recording the other day when I was feeling completely abandoned by everybody, disowned by everybody, my family and everybody else. Not strangers on the internet that I've known. They've been cool, people who align with me politically. But I made this whole recording, and lo and behold, I made the recording, and then my brother, who had disowned me last month, decided to apologize. Very short apology, but I'm going to accept it nonetheless, you know. But so I didn't post that recording. But the point I'm trying to make here is that most of the people I know that have become politically duped are concerned with looking good. You know, the cowardice that goes along with fitting in, going with the herd or whatever, is about the appearance. You know, I've been talking about San Francisco with people like, why don't you move away from San Francisco, man? And it's because I'm stubborn. I love the weather here. My door's open. There's not wind. There's a couple of flies flying around the room. The pigeons just came by. They had a snack. The door's wide open. The air feels beautiful. The light here is amazing. I just fucking love it. And I don't feel like I should have to abandon this piece of property to communists, even though I'm surrounded by people who are really in fear of each other. You know, I've got a friend, I interviewed him once on the podcast. You can go back and check him out if you want to. I'm not going to say his name here, but he's a San Francisco guy, and I know he's a good guy, air quotes, good guy. It's not like we're buddies. We never hung out other than him hiring me to take his picture a couple times and him being on my podcast. I know that he's got more conservative leaning views. Some, not all, but some. He's a good writer. He's a creative guy. But I was just kind of remarking to somebody that literally nobody in my city, I don't know, I know of a few people that are in San Francisco that, stand up and say what they want to say or say the truth no matter what. But I don't know any of them. And nobody I know lives here, And I know some people that I know have some overlapping views with me, but they don't share them. They don't share them. They can't, because of the blowback. Now I can take the blowback because I'm a single guy. I'm not raising a family. I don't have to report to work every day, and deal with, people stalking me or whatever. But, I just think of these people that do, I go, you do have kids. I get it. I get why you might be kind of quiet, but you don't think that in hindsight, these kids will notice that you didn't say anything? That you're keeping your mouth shut and being kind of cowardly about your own views? You don't think they'll judge you for that? I don't know. But again, it's about that appearances. I don't want to look bad. And in my recording that I made the other day that I probably won't post about being disowned by everyone, part of it is like this guy and a few of the people that I know have overlapping views because of face-to-face conversations I've had. They won't even like a post, won't even share it, will kind of just disassociate with you because of the guilt by association. They don't want to have the problems. And I get it. If you're a coward or if you're afraid or if you just don't want to deal with it, I get why people do that. But I just can't stop thinking about, why do you want to live that way? Why? Like, what is the benefit of sneaking around, just keeping your mouth shut and having, the idea would be that you're having pleasant interactions with people because they don't know how you feel about something, because you've kept your mouth shut. And so they assume that you hate the same people they hate. And that's what it's really about. If you look around, you go, well, the people around me all hate Republicans. So I can't express any sympathy for a Republican because they might hate me too. How good can those relationships possibly be to maintain them at that cost? Because the cost of that relationship is you being dishonest, is you turning your back on innocent people, good people who are merely describing reality. And that's what I mean. That's the difference. Good versus evil. Good is reality. God, reality. Good. Evil, fantasy. And I'm not saying that books and plays and, stories are evil, but when you swap them for reality, I think they are. When you deny reality, to me, you are denying God or nature. You're denying everything, the whole big everything that was here already when you were born, all this matter, all these molecules, all having existed for forever, as far as we can tell, because how do you make something from nothing? It's all here. It's all actually happening. There are sliver snapshots of time reality is undeniable. Well, I mean, you can deny it, but it doesn't, your denial of reality doesn't change reality ever. Never does. What happened actually happened. Reality is reality. So if you deny it, you're lying about everything. It's not just a denial of God, it's a denial of your neighbors, it's a denial of everything. It's a denial of all experience. That, to me, describes Satan. That to me sounds satanic, because it's just 100% wrong, Now, of course, and I'm not talking about just being wrong, though, because oftentimes we'll make guesses at reality and we don't know, and we're going to be wrong. If we want to make guesses about things, most of the time we're going to be wrong. Most of the time we make statements, we're going to be wrong, But being good faith wrong isn't the same as denying reality. Once reality is there and put before you, and you can see it, moving forward after you know what reality is, or even if you ignore people presenting reality to you, or even if you ignore it when it's being presented in front of your face and you make a choice to deny it. That's what I'm calling, I don't know, you could call it sin if you want to. You can call it satanic or whatever. So none of that has anything to do with strategy, image, PR. When people say, you look dumb when you do that, I don't care how I look. I don't care how it looks. Because whether I look cool, whether I look smart, whether I look stupid, whether I appear to be whatever, it's just reality. Whatever is reality is reality. If I look stupid, it's probably because I am stupid. And no matter how much I try to disguise my stupidity with a different outfit. Oh, here we go. This tailor, I'm going to look smart if I do that. I'm going to get some glasses. If I trim my beard just so, then I'll look smart. If I quote this list of experts, then I'll look smart. Actually, no. You will look stupid because you are stupid. And there's no escaping your stupidity. This is where humility comes in. This is the part that I like about Christianity and maybe some other religions. And how about just reality? The humility that you must face. Humility should be automatic. We shouldn't, I think it's weird that we even think we can escape humility. Anyway, I'm not a stoner, I promise. I don't even smoke any drugs, but this is the way I think. But it still just does baffle me that there are some people, most people, I guess, that are more concerned about their image than anything else. And what the part that's most baffling is it's okay, so you're concerned with your image. So most people are concerned with their images. Great. That's how people are. Reality. People want to fit in with the herd. So, but let's say you're concerned with your image. Fine. I'll give you that. But wouldn't you want your image to be, I'm a person who's humble enough to accurately describe reality. That I won't try to one-up God or nature. I'm not going to try to prove nature wrong. I'm not trying to get one over on God. I'm not going to deny. Does that work? I guess it kind of does. That recent Sydney Sweeney interview. It's a fun meme thing. I'm not banking on Sydney Sweeney by any measure, because she'll probably bend to the woke mob too at one point. A job will come along. She'll be held over barrel. Did you notice that Kanye was apologizing to a rabbi and kissing his fingers the other day? It may be true. Maybe he really had some second thoughts, but it all kind of gets undermined when you know that they're holding his children hostage from him. So you see, when you see that kind of thing, whether it's true or not, the whole thing is suspicious because they've treated him so poorly leading up to this moment. So you can't really take it at face value, even if it's true, Anyway, Sydney Sweeney, this article, or this interview where you saw it, this woman, this mousy looking woman with that face. Oh, I had a tenant that looked just like her one time. That Paula Poundstone look. you know, just can't make eye contact, and she's just trying to get her into a struggle session. Aren't you ashamed to be white? And Sydney Sweeney's just going, looking at her dead in the face, like, I'm not answering your questions, you know? But anyway, somebody posted this meme of a C.S. Lewis describing flippancy, you know, and they attached it to that image of that interviewer and her smarmy face, and her flippant face. And this description of flippancy was just great. You know, it was just, and what it was is, it's a description of the denial of God. Like it's a joke. Like reality is a joke. You know? Like anything is a joke. And nobody actually says the joke, but you all go into it and you're kind of laughing. And his point was that nobody ever really bonds. The laughter isn't real. Nobody feels edified by it. There aren't really any super strong bonds. And it's kind of like what I'm talking about here. You know, like, for example, my friend that can't like a post or can't engage in certain topics online because of his family or whatever. I'm not saying that he's flippant or anything, but that mechanism that's keeping everybody from engaging in the conversation, it's that smug arrogance, like, we already know that reality is stupid. We already know that God is for simpletons. We're above it. We're better than God. We're better than reality. We don't have to acknowledge reality. We just can sit here and smirk, you know? And when I read that description of that, I went, oh shit, that rings true to me. Because while not a big part of my life, I remember feeling that way sometimes. Like when I first stepped away from Mormonism and everything, and I was a little bit bitter. I went through a stage of bitterness, but then I went through a period of just feeling better than, you know, and where I kind of described myself as an absurdist. And I kind of related with my dad on that level too, because my dad's kind of an absurdist. But I'm not proud of this, and maybe my dad wouldn't be proud of it either. But when you get to that point where you're just essentially smirking at reality and smirking at humanity, and you're just kind of above it all, where everything's just joke, but it's not really a joke because you're not telling a joke. You're not actually constructing a joke. You're just flippant, dismissive, you know, casual about God, you know, about reality, about nature, you know, and just, I don't have to acknowledge nature. That's beneath me. Reality is for peasants. I'm an intellectual. I'm smart. I've reached a higher plane, a more moral plane. Anyway, I'm a little bit off track, but tying it back to my opener, it's just that if you're seeking an image for yourself, and you think that being smug and being flippant and being dismissive of reality, and you think that being clever or just wording something a certain way just to get somebody on a technicality, but you're missing the big picture, which is God, which is reality. That's the big picture. Every time there's something put before your eyes, a choice, what's the right thing and what's the wrong thing? If you don't have your eyes focused on the difference between good and evil, you know, if instead you're trying to craft an image for yourself, that's another thing that C.S. Lewis quote was about. It's he mentioned that flippancy is creating armor, and I thought that was a very apt part too, because that is what it is. That flippancy, that dismissiveness, that know-it-all arrogance. You know, I'm above it. I don't need to engage. You know, if you think if you're choosing that image, well, I'm not going to say I feel sorry for you or anything, because I don't know if that would be true, you know. But if I did know you, when I was looking at you in your face, I think I'd probably see the humanity in you. I know I'm typically like that. It's why I'm kind of avoid humans. It's why I wore sunglasses at night for a lot of years, to be the most cliche thing ever. But I wear sunglasses because if I engage with somebody, if I meet eyes with somebody, I have a hard time not acknowledging that. I have a hard time just looking away as if I didn't see them. You know, I have a hard time disconnecting that moment from the human being, you know? And in fact, I get sucked into it too much. I get sucked into dysfunctional things too much. Anyway, point is if I was looking at you in your eyes and you are presenting this kind of flippant attitude, this dismissive, you know, trying to in any way diminish or dismiss the miracle of everything in reality, I feel like I would feel sad that you were doing that. And I don't know why. I can't tell you exactly why, but that's the feeling I would feel. You know, like, why? Why can't you just acknowledge reality? Reality is amazing. It's a miracle. There's a lot of, there's terror in there. You know, there's a drama, but don't you buy tickets to go see dramatic movies and terror? You know, it's like, it's just kind of amazing that we even buy tickets for art. It's amazing that we even spend time to go see a movie, when really it's just reality that surrounds us everywhere. And it's just like anywhere you point your eyes, there's a unfathomable story of miracle and heroism against all odds, you know? I'm looking at these pigeons on my deck right now, and just the idea that their little molecules came together in such a way that they can fly around and they can be my friends. And I know them, and, you know, there's Rooney, there's Gurf, there's Rose, there's Blinky. And I know these guys, and they fly around. And I don't think they deny reality at all. I think they're immersed in it. Anyway, I'm way off track. But, yeah, don't worry about how you look. I mean, I'm not saying don't brush your hair or don't wear some cool pants. Cool pants are cool. Cool shoes are cool. But don't put that over just bathing in reality, you know? And letting your senses guide you through it. It's pretty cool. I don't know. That's all. Thanks for listening.
Unnecessary outro song to tell